The Five Nights at Freddy's franchise has always concerned itself with repetition. Children die, corporations deny, ghosts linger, and mascots smile through it all. Yet for much of the series' early lifespans, the horror remained spatially contained. The threat lived inside abandoned restaurants, backstage rooms, or sealed-off attractions. Evil was physical. It could be locked away, burned, or dismantled. But Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted represents a decisive rupture in that formula. Rather than asking the player to survive a haunted place, Help Wanted asks something far more unsettling. What happens when the horror is packaged as entertainment, trauma is reframed as parody, and participation becomes consent? In doing so, the game initiates a thematic evolution that carries through the Curse of Dreadfare, Security Breach, and Ruin. This evolution marks the transition from supernatural hauntings to digital possession, from ghosts in machines to machine inside people. At the center of this stands Glitchtrap, also known as Malware or Mimic, Glitchtrap Mimic 1 or something. A smile-waving rabbit who never attacks, never chases, and never needs to. Glitchtrap is not frightening because he is violent, but because he is patient. He does not force control, he cultivates belief. By examining the interconnected narrative of Steve, Jeremy, Tate Girl, and Vanessa, and situating them with Fazbear Entertainment's long history of corporate obfuscation, Help Wanted argues that this is not about William Axel's return in a literal sense, rather it is about the resurrection of his methodology, a system that survives death by embedding itself into technology, labor structures, and human psychology. In this new era of FNAF, evil no longer needs a body, it only needs access to vessels. Fazbear Entertainment launches its most ambitious rebranding effort, the Freddy Fazbear Virtual Experience. Publicly, Help Wanted is a parody, a VR game that mocks the company's own scandals. Internally, it is an act of narrative laundering. By transforming murders into minigames, Fazbear Entertainment reframes truth as exaggerations. If everything is a joke, nothing can be taken seriously. This tactic mirrors real-world corporate strategies in which scandals is absorbed into branding rather than confronted. To expedite development, Fazbear Entertainment supplies silver parasol games with old animatronic circuit boards. These boards are represented as harmless shortcuts, data-rich components that can accelerate AI behavior modeling. What the developers are not told is that these boards are saturated with remnant, the supernatural residue of emotional agony and consciousness that has long been central to FNAF lore. Springtrap. Once scanned, the code does not simply replicate animatronic behavior, it mutates. Glitchtrap emerges not as a line of dialogue or scripted enemy, but as an anomaly. He appears in menus, watches from a distance, and mirrors player movements. Crucially, he never breaks immersed through aggression. He behaves like a glitch, something to be observed, not feared. This is deliberate. Glitchtrap represents William Afton's freed from physical constraints. He is no longer bound to spring locks or endoskeletons. He exists as behavioral logic, capable of persisting, replicating, and adapting. He does not need to kill to survive. Instead, he controls them as his loyal followers. The first survivor to recognize Glitchtrap as a threat is Jeremy. He becomes obsessed with the anomaly. At first, his interest is professional. Then it becomes compulsive. His colleagues notice behavioral changes, withdrawal, fixation, emotional flattening. Tate Girl's recording suggests that Jeremy loses his fear response entirely, a psychological state more dangerous than panic. Fear motivates escape. Without it, resistance collapses. Glitchtrap's influence manifests through symbolism rather than force. Mass mimicry and identity erosion dominates Jeremy's experience. The entity does not attack Jeremy's body, it attacks his sense of self. When Jeremy ultimately mutilates himself, slicing off his own face, he attempts to remove the mask Glitchtrap is imposing on him. Jeremy's death is not victory. It is a containment failure. Tate Core recognizes the danger, attempts to fragment Glitchtrap by splitting its data across 16 tapes. Her intention is noble, scatter the entity so it cannot reform, but in doing so, she creates a scavenger hunt. To understand the threat, the next tester must gather the tapes, unknowingly reconstructing Glitchtrap piece by piece. Knowledge becomes infection. But Help Wanted implicates the player directly. Unlike previous FNAF titles where survival is passive, Help Wanted requires active participation. The player must choose to collect the tapes. He must choose to explore hidden rooms. The player watches Glitchtrap wave and does not leave. Glitchtrap does not override free will. He exploits curiosity. Each step the player takes feels voluntary. The so-called good ending, in which Glitchtrap is sealed behind a door, reinforces this illusion. The player believes they have won. In reality, they have complied. The entity is not destroyed. It is compressed, transformed into a plus, a symbol, a totem. Containment becomes portability. The Curse of Dreadbear reframes the events of Help Wanted through the lens of ritual. Set against a stylized version of 1983, the DLC returns to the bite of 83, the franchise's original trauma. This temporal regression reinforces the idea that unresolved violence does not disappear, it echoes. Dreadbear itself is a grotesque symbol, a reassembled corpse of cold and metal evoking Frankenstein's monster. But Dreadbear is a distraction. The true narrative focus lies in the mask. In the core maze level, the player implicitly Vanessa finds a bunny mask identical to Glitchtrap's form. The mask in this case has represented identity loss in FNAF. Here, the symbolism becomes explicit. To wear the mask is not to hide, it is to accept submission. Unlike Jeremy, Vanessa does not resist. Vanessa's corruption is slow, methodical, and disturbingly consensual. She is not terrorized, she is converted. Glitchtrap speaks to her not as a confidant, but as a master. He validates her isolation, her frustrations, her desires to be seen. In the DLC's final scene, Vanessa holds the Glitchtrap Plus and speaks in a softened, childlike tone. She assures the entity that no one suspects anything. This is not possession, it is indoctrination. Vanessa becomes Vanny not because she is weak, but because she is receptive. She believes she has found purpose. In this way, Glitchtrap completes his transformation from murderer to cult leader. The arc from Jeremy to Vanessa reveals the true horror of Help Wanted. Willing Acton no longer needs to kill. His ideology persists through systems that reward compliance, normalize exploitation, and convert trauma into content. Fazbear Entertainment does not resurrect Acton out of malice. It does so out of convenience. The past becomes product. The product becomes platform. The platform becomes belief. By the time security breach begins, the damage is already done. The monster is not hiding in the basement. He's wearing a security badge. In Five Nights at Freddy's, the most terrifying evolution is not technological, but cultural, because ghosts cannot be exorcised. But systems are taught to survive. Welcome back to another week of career fulfillment and minimal social interaction. With this line, spoken by Handy Unit in Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2, the franchise delivers one of its most quietly devastating thesis statements. Gone is the overt mystery of haunted restaurants and missing children. Gone too is the singular focus of Willing Acton as a corporate monster. In his place stands something colder, more impersonal, and arguably more frightening, a corporate system that no longer needs its creator. Help Wanted 2 represents itself as a cheerful escalation of its predecessor, bigger attractions, more mini games, more animatronics, more opportunities. Yet beneath this glossy surface lies a continuation and culmination of the franchise shifts away from supernatural hauntings and towards existential horror rooted in labor, surveillance, and simulated identity. If Help Wanted was about the digitalization of trauma, the Help Wanted 2 is about what happens after the trauma has been normalized. This is a game not about possession, but about retention, not about resurrection, but about maintenance. It asks a single deeply unsettling question. What if the worst thing Fazbear Entertainment ever created wasn't Willing Acton, but a system that learned how to function without him? At its core, Help Wanted 2 is framed as a Fazbear orientation program, an AR and VR job training simulation designed to prepare new employees for life inside the Mega Pizzaplex. This framing is critical. Unlike previous entries, the player is not an intruder, night guard, or investigator. You are an employee explicitly hired, evaluated, and rewarded. Every gameplay segment, backstage, fastcade, staff only, food prep, ticket booth, sister location, is presented as a professional responsibility. Even fear itself is rebranded as a skill set. You're not surviving horror. You are performing competence under pressure. This marks a significant tonal evolution. In early games, animatronics were threats. In Hell 1 and 2, they are co-workers, patients, clients, and supervisors. Roxanne Wolf needs cosmetic repairs. Grandma Chica demands food. Pig Patch requires first aid. The daycare attendant needs emotional regulation. Horror is no longer an invasion of workplace. It is the workplace. The player's sense of agency is carefully managed. You are praised just enough to feel valued, insulted just enough to feel dependent. Hand unit sarcasm is not comedic flavor, it is corporate conditioning. You are reminded that you are replaceable, yet indispensable, that you belong here because nowhere else wants you. This is the same psychological manipulation that destroys Jeremy in Help Wanted, refined and scaled, where Jeremy was isolated in a room. The Help Wanted 2 protagonist is isolated inside a feedback loop of tasks, rewards, and simulated progress. On the surface, Help Wanted 2 appears mechanically electric. Rhythm games, repair puzzles, shooters, cooking simulators, and throwback to sister location games. But narratively, these modes are unified by a single concept: maintenance of the brand. The backstage segments, arts and crafts, salon makeovers, animatronic repairs, frame identity as something modifiable. Roxanne Wolf confidence is literally rebuilt through cosmetic adjustments. Stat bots are customized to better serve appearances over function. The implication is subtle but damning. Animatronics are not broken when they malfunction. They are broken when they no longer perform correctly. Emotional instability is treated as a technical issue. The Fazcade represents Fazbear Entertainment's weaponizing of nostalgia. Bonk a Bon Fazzer Blast, Bonnie Bowl, these are distractions masquerading as rewards. They keep the employee engaged, competitive, and invest in high scores. They have no meaning beyond internal validation. This mirrors the world of the VR game itself, what the universe entertainment used to suppress inquiry. If you're busy chasing scores, you're not asking questions now, are you? The staff-only areas are some of the most unsettling segments of the game. First aid for animatronics like Pig Patch, Lefty, and Scrap Baby reframes suffering as routine. You are trained to treat symptoms, not causes. You stabilize broken systems without ever being allowed to dismantle them. This is where Help Wanted 2 quietly echoes Pizzeria Simulator. The remnants of the past, Scrap Baby, Lefty, are no longer threats to be destroyed. They are liabilities to be managed. Fruit Bread tasks push the metaphor further. You feed Glamrock Chica and staff bugs at impossible speeds, reinforcing the idea that value is measured in output, not well-being. The player is encouraged to optimize, not reflect. In this way, Help Wanted 2 turns the player into exactly what Fazbear Entertainment wants: a highly efficient, emotionally disengaged operator. Midway through the game, the narrative fractures. The protagonist is granted a Faz wrench, a tool associated with technicians, specifically Cassie's father, the security breach ruin. Using it, the player opens a previously inaccessible metal door and disables an AR inhibitor. This act fundamentally alters the game's meaning. For the first time, the player removes the Fanny mask. What is revealed is not a hidden room, but a revelation of context. The player has been inside the ruined remains of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Place all along. The cheerful hub, the pristine attractions, the organized tests, none of it was real. This twist reframes Help Wanted 2 as a layered simulation, not just VR within a game, but AR masking a decaying physical space. Reality has been overridden for the sake of productivity. The implications of chilling Fazbear Entertainment no longer fixes its mistakes, it covers them with interfaces now. Unlike Help Wanted 2, which left its player's character deliberately vague, Help Wanted 2 invites and then destabilizes specific theories about the protagonist's identity. Evidence suggests the player is a Fazbear technician, a parent, the owner of a Faz wrench, connected to Bonnie with imagery, possibly Cassie's father, possibly, or maybe Jeremy's father, for all we know, or Vanessa's father. I don't know. But there's a high theory that it's Cassie's father, and he's one of the 5 children in FNAF 4 as for the crying childs, like Fox Michael's bully friend. And Mystic Hips unsettling comedy. Do you ever really look at your hands? Is not metaphorical. The player's hands change depending on whether the mask is worn. In Princess Quest 4, the protagonist is depicted as a digital avatar, not a human body. This raises a terrifying possibility. The player may not be trapped in a simulation. They may be what remains after the simulation took over. Hidden throughout the game are memory dolls, objects tied to victims of bullying acting. Collecting them unlocks Prison Quest 5, a direct continuation of the minigame that freed Vanessa in Security Breach. This pass represents the only form of resistance in Help Wanted 2. Memory, not productivity, not compliance, not optimization, but remembrance. Where Fazbear Entertainment relies on forgetting, rebranding, reframing, and rewriting, Princess Quest demands acknowledgement. The player confronts digital representation of trauma, not to exploit them, but to recognize them. The achievement name, Remember Jeremy, is telling. It suggests that identity erosion is not accidental. People are forgetting because forgetting is useful to Fazbear Entertainment. Notably, Help Wanted 2 does not center Glitchtrap as an active antagonist. He appears, but he no longer needs to persuade. The system he inspired is already in place. The inclusion and teasing of the Mimic is critical here. Unlike Glitchtrap, the Mimic is not a ghost of willing acting. It is an algorithmic inheritor. It does not remember trauma. It reproduces behavior. This marks the franchise's final evolution away from Afton as a character and toward Afton as a pattern. The horror of Help Wanted 2 is not when Afton's might return. It is that he does not have to return. Or at least, I hope so. But they're defined as Freddy's Help Wanted 2. The player has done exactly what was asked of them. They worked efficiently, they followed instructions, they adopted, they endured, and in doing so, they became part of the machine. Help Wanted 2 is not a story about escape, it is a story about institutional absorption, about how horror persists not through monsters but through policies, not through murder but through labor, not through fear but through normalization. The true ending is not whether you free a princess or collect enough figures. The true ending is the Fazbear Entertainment is still operational and it's still hiring. But you know what's even crazier than this video? Why, me solving sister location. That's even crazier, guys. Crazy. Or me solving the first 4 games. You know, take a pick. Which one? You decide.